Hello and welcome to episode 23 of the Perth Paisley Podcast, a podcast dedicated to the side that sit on top of the Scottish Championship, Heart of Midlothian Football Club. 5 wins from 6 matches thanks to the weekend win against Green Morton at Capello, our first match through there since 1987. And joining me to discuss Heart's latest victory, amongst other things, is Mr. Daniel McIver. How are we getting on, Daniel?
Well, I'm in awe of your fantastic statistics. I didn't expect this.
Thanks very much. It's a little bit of prep. Yeah.
I wouldn't know anything about that, but I'm very well. How are you?
Yeah, I'm excellent. I'm obviously flattered by your compliments regarding my prep. It's good to see that my hard work is being rewarded. And I was left entertained by your football manager antics on Sunday evening. Some superb stuff with the mighty Jambos. So here's your chance to drop a wee plug. Fire away.
Oh, it's been good. So for people who don't follow me on Twitter, I regularly live stream on Twitch, and recently, due to the new release of the new Football Manager game, I started a secondary save as Valencia in the beta. But in the last few weeks, I've been playing as Hearts. We're in our first season, so it's basically this season. Just had an interesting one where we got the Betfred semi-final, where we got battered off Aberdeen. However, we were previously on a 16-game win run. So it's that top quality level of management you can expect. If you want to watch it, I tweet about it. So just at McIverTheMark on Twitter, and you'll get all the links there.
Of course, if you're following Perth Paisley on Twitter, I'll try and retweet Daniel's tweets whenever he's going live. But we're discussing real life matters today, of course. Today's agenda will chat about the routine result in Renfrewshire for Hearts at the weekend, the Gorgie girls getting the better of Hibs in the weekend's Edinburgh derby. We'll have a wee glance at our Scottish Cup final opponents, Celtic's form of late, all the kind of hoo-ha surrounding them, and discuss the upcoming championship match with Queen of the South at Tynecastle.
Plenty of stuff to discuss.
Absolutely. So before we get into talking selection and discuss the match itself, Robbie Nielsen said in his pre-match press conference that he thought the most important thing that Hearts did at the weekend was win, primarily but due to obviously the defeat against Alloa, but he did highlight previously that we'd won 80% of our matches prior to Saturday and we had to put our recent results to bed. Daniel, just how pleased are you with Saturday's result? Were there any nerves for you heading into this clash given the recent away day disasters with Alloa and Dunfermline?
I was about to say, purely because it was away, there was a wee bit of nerves. I obviously gave a mental prediction on the podcast of 3-2, but my actual kind of like football head on was 2-1 Morton, purely just because I thought we're away from home. We've been dire away from home even when we won, because when we won away at Arbroath, it was a very hard fought win. We did get the result, but we missed a lot of chances, and towards the end Arbroath were kind of piling on the pressure. So I was in no way confident. However, I should be pessimistic more often because we absolutely got the job done. But what about you? Were you thinking we've got this, or were you a bit worried?
I like you, I was sceptical, obviously, having slavered on about, kind of our away day disasters last week, and I think the criticism was justified, like you say, with the Arbroath result. Obviously it was great to win, but again wasn't all that convincing. Dunfermline, for the most part, we were second best, and obviously having seen us at Recreation Park, I thought we'd got what we deserved. Robbie was keen to highlight the fact that we'd only lost one league game so far this campaign, and that everybody could kind of beat everyone else in the division. He did obviously praise Morton and say that they would be tricky, make it tricky for us, try to go compact, go kind of 5-4-1 even. Did you feel that heading into the game that this would be a team we could struggle to break down?
Absolutely, and when you watch the game as well, it's almost 2 banks of 5. Honestly, it's like one of the most defensive performances I've seen in recent years. I remember Laurie was saying on his commentary that he couldn't believe quite how defensive Morton were, because obviously every team has been defensive against us with the exception of Hibs, and even then they weren't as all guns blazing as a lot of people thought they were going to be. But Morton took that to the next level. They did nothing all game apart from one chance. that went past the post. But apart from that, they offered absolutely nothing. But pre-match, that was the worry, and they were just going to grind out a result. Robbie was very quick to speak about the kind of performance this season, and I do actually support him in that. I saw some people grumble about it, but I do agree, like, in this league, we shouldn't be losing that many games or dropping that many points. But other teams, even Dunfermline and Wraith, who are doing really well just now, will most likely stumble against each other a few times, whereas we should only stumble once or twice. So I really did appreciate Robbie making those comments, and then this weekend actually perfectly encapsulated it with us getting a very dominant win and then Dunfermline and Wraith stumbling against each other.
I was going to say, and Rovers will be kicking themselves with the fact that they were obviously 2 to the good as well in that game.
Yep.
Robbie was kind of keen to place real emphasis on the fact that we had good players, and pre-match, obviously the setup, I think, kind of threw a few surprises in there. At first glance, I thought it was maybe a 4-3-3, but then I saw talk on Twitter kind of suggested a 4-4-2 diamond. How did you first feel kind of when you saw the assortment of names? Because I'll be honest, I didn't have a Scooby what formation we were playing. I knew that the back four and keeper were obviously apparent, but then it just appeared to be a free-for-all after that.
I was very much the same. We obviously spoke to each other about minutes before the game, being like, what is this formation? However, the two most notable aspects of the team were an inclusion and a non-inclusion. Initially, it looked like Robbie Nielsen had bottled it after you grilled him after Alloa and had dropped Liam Boyce, and that got a lot of talking immediately. However, then post-match we find out Robbie was planning to play him, but he has a wee niggle in his hamstring, so he didn't want to risk him. He was actually then going to bring him on for the last 15 minutes, but Boyce said, I'm not risking it, it still feels a wee bit tight. So there's not much we can comment on about that. Boyce was going to be starting, however didn't. But the major inclusion was that of Andy Irving, and as soon as I saw Irving was in the team, I genuinely started to get more confident, and I think that's the ability that he has, because he is the only player in this team who, as soon as he gets the ball, his first thought is to look up and play a ball forward. And I just thought that's what we need against teams like this. And then in terms of the formation, I actually think you were right with your initial thing. Watching that first half play out, I think we were a 4-3-3 with Walker on the left hand side and Naismith on the right.
Yeah, certainly. Obviously we'll get into discussing Jamie Walker, but he was having a lot of joy kind of down that left hand side. Obviously you touched on the changes there, but Craig Halkett missed the Alloa defeat through injury. He came back into the fray for the Morton match. In midfield, Halliday, Lee, Walker all kept their places, with, like you say, Andy Irving joining them in the middle of the park, Peter Haring making way, and Liam Boyce and Eddie White, despite obviously Eddie White conducting a pre-match presser and me grilling Robbie. Well, in fact, let's just play the clip again. Sorry, Robbie. It's another blank for Liam Boyce this afternoon. Do you plan on persisting with him for Morton coming up?
Of course, mate. He's a top striker, isn't he? You know what I mean? Thanks, Rob.
So obviously me asking Robbie about Liam Boyce. And
before you go on, by the way, Eddie White is the most Yorkshire man ever, and I had no idea.
Is he not Barnsley born, but he just plays for Ireland because he qualifies through somebody? I don't know.
Yeah, but I didn't realise how strong his accent is. I loved it.
I do like a Yorkshire accent, to be fair.
So I'm described as someone who looks like a playable character in a game.
I think,
which I felt was a bit harsh.
I thought the best that I saw was somebody on Twitter saying that he looked like Mr. Burns from The Simpsons.
He does. I've also heard him described as a wet pigeon.
Yeah, I saw
think
that.
I think that was Robert Borthwick, actually.
Well, the wet pigeon and Liam Boyce made way for Craig Whiting and Stephen Naismith, like you say. We were obviously struggling to work out the formation. Still no real concerns, was there, regarding selection, because that team on paper should be enough to see pretty much everyone in this league.
Absolutely. It's like almost as full strength as we possibly can get without Boyce and Naismith and Herring.
And you know, I thought the actual game itself, it did seem to pan out that way. It looked pretty routine for us. I think first half, I felt as though before we scored that actually most of our efforts were from range. There's kind of seemed to be a real reluctance to build, I don't want to say easier opportunities, but perhaps more scoreable ones within the kind of 18-yard box.
No,
I
disagree. I disagree. This is what I've wanted to see from this team for recent weeks now. Think about it, right? See, last time we were in the Championship under Nielsen, the amount of goals we scored outside the box were 71% of the goals. That's a lot of goals.
71%?
Yep, 71%. I have that on good authority as well. That is a lot of goals. And my issue has been, when you're playing against teams who are defending in a low block with loads of men behind the ball, what that should allow you is more space on the kind of 20-yard line. So as a result, just hit it at times when we have creative players who clearly can show that. Because we've got players like Stephen Naismith, Liam Boyce, Ollie Lee, Craig Whiten, Jamie Walker, Andy Irvine, Scott McGill, players who can just take a ball and just even, and like obviously on the injury list just now, but Ginnelly, he did it against Dundee, Kingsley did it twice against Dundee. Like, what that creates is a choice for a defender. Either you throw yourself in front of it, and then either that's deflected out for a corner, back to one of our players, a stramash, or it potentially could hit an arm and be a penalty, or they panic and get out the way and it creates a space. So when you're an attacking pressing team, you should be having efforts outside the box, because it creates this dichotomy where defenders have to start going, or management of the opposition have to start going, right, we're allowing them far too many shots to the edge of the box, so we need to push, and then that creates space inside to get in the box.
I mean, I'm actually speechless. That you're showing your tactical know-how as to why you're such a successful football manager within that.
He's at 16 games wins, mate. It's not just all luck.
Can I say, first of all, I'm impressed with the use of the word dichotomy. Never heard of that in my puff. And secondly, I hadn't considered that at all. How delighted were you to see my Player of the Year nominee grab a brace in this game?
Well, there's 3 points to this. First of all, gutted that in this game you were proven right in a way. Gutted. Almost would have taken the loss just so that you couldn't sit here smug.
Pleasing.
But the 2 actual points are, 1, I absolutely slaughtered Walker last week, much like I did the week before last with Halliday, and then he put in a man of the match performance. Walker then put in a man of the match performance. So we're going to need to dedicate a segment each week to me slaughtering somebody, and there'll be class the next game. But my actual analytical takeaway is that this was the first game, I think, this season, or actually maybe that Jamie Walker has come back to the club, where he just stuck to the position he was told to be in. Because the amount of times this season where we saw him and Naismith occupying the exact same space, and clearly one of them wasn't meant to be there, he's been played out on the right and he drifts in. He's been played centrally and he drifts out. He was clearly just told, Jamie, stay on that left-hand side. And he did it the entire game. I don't think he cut in once. I don't remember him doing it at all, apart from technically his goal where he rounds the player, but it's not even really cutting in.
I was about to say, yeah, because that was the only real opportunity where it sort of presents itself for him, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. And look, it worked. It worked brilliantly. It was man of the match by far. Both the goals, which we will get to, were fantastic. But his all-round play was just great. And it's like, Jamie, look what can happen. And I don't want to be negative, but that is where the frustration with Jamie Walker comes. Because it's like, you've shown that you can do it. Like, just do it regularly.
You literally took the words out of my mouth. I was just about to say that the frustration with me for regards to him is it's almost like it's a laziness thing. Saturday's performance showed what he's capable of, and he really did look back to his best. He's actually got a really good footballing brain, and I think he can be a real nuisance for opposition defenders. Both goals are of real quality, but obviously there's been a kind of stat that's emerged recently on the old Twitter sphere, and after netting his 46th and 47th goal for Hearts against Morton, Jamie Walker is a hat-trick away from reaching the 50-goal milestone. And considering there's only 36 players in the club's history that have scored more than 50, that's pretty impressive.
I think that's more than pretty impressive. Rudy didn't even get 50. And I think, listen, as I've said multiple times, I've been very, some may say harsh on Walker in the past, but it is just because I know what he can do on his day. And I know that on his day he can be one of the best players in the country. Never mind in this league. And him getting the 50 goals, and of course everybody on Twitter has been going, the best place to do it, Jamie, is in a Scottish Cup final. Do it then, please, for the love of God, do it then. But he's most likely going to get to that unless he has another massive injury, and he should be celebrated for that, obviously following in his family's footsteps as well. And it is just objectively a fantastic thing, and he should be given the plaudits that he deserves for that.
2 against Queens and the winner in the final for you?
I'd be fine if he had a 2 out of 10 performance next week and then he scored all 3 against Celtic.
It's funny, that stat, I think the last player is Colin Cameron, or the most recent on the list. You know, that's crazy. But then I was discussing it with obviously my dad and whatever, and it kind of, it's somewhat surprising but also isn't, given the lack of, you know, perceived loyalty in football. But that is a phenomenal stat.
What's more I will say, obviously, as I say, it's absolutely phenomenal. What's more phenomenal is that Rudy nearly did it in 2 years.
Well, that's true.
What was he, 2 away or something? Or 4 away? I think Rudy got at least to 46 or something.
100% actually. Maybe a listener can enlighten us, or we'll search it up. But
yeah.
But let's get into his goals, because the first was bizarre yet brilliant for me.
It's a FIFA glitch. Ollie Lee glitches.
Well, this is what I was going to say, because he's another. You're right. We're going to have to dedicate a segment where could we call it turn up please, and we can absolutely grill somebody, and then they'll chuck in a man of the match performance in the next game, because
Daniel's demands. There
we go. We've obviously been critical of Ollie Lee, but some fantastic footwork, like you say, before firing over to Walker on the left, and he strikes it into the ground beyond the keeper. We touched on him briefly there. That was Rudy Scatchell-esque for me, and I was trying to think what goal I'd seen. I think it was the 05-06, the second Tynecastle derby of that season, where Paul Hartley takes a free kick, and it comes out to Rudy kind of lurking on the edge of the box, and he smashes it into the ground and scores. And Archie McPherson's absolutely loving it on the commentary. What a time to be alive. But it's a great goal.
I have 2 questions for you. Did Ollie Lee mean that assist, and did Jamie Walker mean that shot?
I would say that Walker means the shot more than Ollie Lee means the assist, because it seems like it's just a Raj bit of juggling. Listen, it's a great ball out to him.
Yes.
But
yeah, it's a fantastic assist. I just don't physically understand how it happened.
No, neither do I. It's one of them where you have to watch it kind of a good couple times, where you're like, did he just actually do that? And then the second,
I will say, I thought Ollie Lee was really poor in the first half.
Interesting.
I thought he just kept really poor might be harsh, right? But I feel like whenever we lost the ball, it was him. But then that only happened for the first kind of half an hour. I felt like he wasn't great, and then literally the rest of the game he was great. He is the slowest man I have ever seen, but we played him in that more advanced role, so he didn't need to do as much running.
I was going to say, it seems like that game is kind of so it's just a carbon copy of Ollie Lee. Just takes a while to get going, but once he gets going, he's good. Obviously the second Walker goal as well, we've touched on Andy Irving in recent podcasts, and from a personal perspective, it's just absolutely no surprise seeing the Portobello Pirlo do his thing. It's a lovely ball over to the left wing for Walker to cut inside, like we mentioned. Cool, calm and composed finish. As much as the pass is praised, I also think that the touch from Walker as he's taking it in his stride goes unnoticed. What's your thoughts?
The touch kills the defender's chances of getting it.
Yeah, and ultimately sets him away.
It's just brilliant from all aspects, but oh my god, Andy Irving just needs to play every single week. We're a different team when he plays, and he's only 20.
Unbelievable. What a baller. Barry Anderson obviously released an article today on the day recording saying that Hearts are working hard to tie him down to a long-term deal. I've ran out of superlatives for him, but what would that mean to you if we could agree terms with this young man to stay in Gorgie?
It genuinely is one of the most important contract negotiations in years for me, because we've got a rubbish record of this. Patterson leaves for free, Nicholson leaves for free, Walker initially kinda didn't get as much money as we expected to. Hickey, yeah, we got a bit of money, but should have got far more. We've been rubbish at ensuring good deals for youngsters coming through the academy, and that's the point of the academy. And Irving is just the next one who we need to secure on a several year deal. Because listen, I'm not naive enough to think that Andy Irving's going to be here until he retires, or even that he's going to be here in 3 years, or even 2 years. But if that is the case, ensure that we get the money that we should be getting for him and sign him up to a several year deal. He is a Hearts fan. By all accounts, he's really open to signing. I mean, Robbie has just been waxing lyrical about him as well. It's so crucial. And then just from a footballing perspective, he's the best midfielder we have in the club apart from Herring. Like, in that position. He's better than Lee, he's better than Halliday, he's better than Demure. He looks better than McGill. We haven't obviously seen a lot of McGill, but just in terms of age, experience and ability on the ball, I'd say he's better than Cochrane, I'd say he's better than Smith. He's better than everybody in these positions. With him playing, we tick and we look positive, and I can't wait to see him and Herring properly together. I think that's just going to be fantastic.
And how many times have we said that it genuinely has the makings of the perfect midfield partnership? You're right about the youth kind of deals as well, though. But Hearts have had a history of this for years. Like, even it's funny you listed off a good couple there. The one that popped into my head was Andy Driver as well, when there was supposed kind of Premier League interest and Hearts didn't cash in, and obviously then his injuries hit, and I think he obviously then left the club on a free transfer and whatever. But it's just I cannot stress the importance of Andy Irving signing this new contract. And what baffles me is just how kind of, I don't want to say how blind to the situation we were, but how kind of dismissive we were that he wasn't getting his chance to shine in the team, because he's just an absolute baller. He's a joy to watch. He really is.
He's great. I love him.
But we mentioned last week that the results are priority, and even though performances have perhaps been underwhelming, that obviously the 3 points are of the utmost importance. I think the performance was slightly underwhelming for me in that we probably could have grabbed a couple more. But of course, you know me, I'm happy with the result. Is that as easy an away game as we'll get in the second tier this season? Because, like we said earlier, it's on the road that the pair of us have voiced concerns.
Yeah, I will say this. I personally disagree a wee bit. I'm actually really happy with how we played. Watching that 90 minutes, at no point did I think we were going to concede. Like, no. I will say a special shout out as well to their keeper, because he was on fire. 2 saves in particular he made. One where Naismith's running onto it and Naismith volleys it and he makes a save. But in particular, a save he makes in the first half from Ollie Lee, where he claws it over the bar, is incredible. So if it wasn't for him, I think we would have scored a few more. But they look really bad. Really bad.
Yeah, it's not too encouraging from a
much like their
perspective.
pitch, by the way.
Oh, dreadful surface. Dreadful surface.
That was bad.
But obviously, I think you're right. What Robbie said after the game is certainly encouraging for future away days. The precise passing, controlling the game, breaking the opposition down. Was all this evident for you? Us just moving it quicker and getting into the big areas like he touched on?
We just looked like a better team who actually had a system and knew what we were doing. Like, I will be open and honest. I was worried when I thought that it was going to be Walker and Naismith as the wide men. But I will say, we haven't really mentioned him, but I thought this was Naismith's best game apart from when he came on against Hibs. He was dictating everything as he always does, but he was actually involved in all the play and he was building it up and he was talking people through games and stuff like that. I just thought he was excellent, and it did just scream more of a system that everybody knew their role, everybody knew what they had to do, and they did it really, really well.
And long may it continue.
Definitely.
Of course, we're going to also touch on the fantastic result that the Gorgie girls got in the Edinburgh Derby. Their first win in the SWPL this season, having obviously been promoted to the top tier. You're still on social media duty, so I'm turning over to you here. Was it a deserved win? Were we, I don't want to say dominant, or was it a kind of backs to the wall performance in that we just took our chance, our chance, I should say, when we got it?
It's a weird one because, listen, this season's very individual for the women's game because there is no relegation this year due to league reconstruction that's happening. So a lot of teams like ourselves, who we always knew this season was going to be a bit of a struggle in terms of the opposition we're facing, most of them are very well established, very good football teams. However, the lack of relegation has kind of given a buffer, and Andy Kirk is obviously the new manager, and you can tell he's building a system, and you can tell he's building an identity, and he knows how he wants to play. And I think in recent games it hasn't really come off just purely because the opposition we're playing against has either just been completely overwhelming, or individuals have made some wee mistakes that have cost us and then heads have went down. However, as we record this, yesterday's performance, but as you're listening to this, Sunday's performance was almost the best performance you can get in this league for us because, yeah, listen, we basically had that one chance and we took it, but Charlotte in goals was just incredible. If you've seen the guys listening to this, if you go into Hibs Women's page and watch the highlights, because the top comment is from a Hearts fan going, sorry, you're telling me we had Joe Pereira in goals and the whole time we've had one of the best keepers in the women's team? Because especially in that video, 3 saves she makes are just fantastic. And listen, yeah, Hibs had far more chances, but we were completely defensively sound and we took our chance. It was an absolutely fantastic hit from Paige. It was our first goal for the club in our first Edinburgh Derby, as she's on loan from Celtic. I tweeted when she was initially signed, I thought it was a really, really good signing. I didn't think she was going to have that level of impact, but it's arguably the biggest result in the club's young history, just if you take into account how dominant Hibs have been in the past kind of decade or so. They've been right up there with Glasgow City. We're obviously still a relatively new team, our first season in this division, and I will also say it's such a Hearts Hibs moment to happen.
Yeah, us just nicking it late on and then the absolute bedlam after. I mean, the video where you see Claire Delworth as well at right back, just going absolutely nuts, is superb. I mean, what are the fixtures looking like? How will this give us, a big boost in terms of our upcoming matches?
hopefully, because this weekend coming up, we've got another Edinburgh derby. We play
wow.
Spartans.
Excellent.
And they're at Ainsley Park. So if you wanted momentum for an Edinburgh derby, winning another Edinburgh derby, you can't really ask for more. Obviously, it's away from home. We've struggled on the road recently. However, I think all Andy will need to say to them is, look, at now, you now know it can be done, and you now know how to do it. So therefore, go out and continually do it. As I say, they have played well this season. It's just games haven't gone against them. And I know you can often look at the score lines and go, well, how can you say they've played well when they've conceded so many goals in a game and stuff like that? But it's that just by the nature of it, women's football tends to have more goals in games. But generally, they have played well. New signings that we've made. Of course, we just made a new signing. Literally, it was announced hours before the game with Megan Aitchison coming in. Another really interesting signing, Hearts fan as well all her life. So it is looking positive. I know you might think you've only got your first win after 6 games. However, definitely exciting and positive things coming up for the women's team.
Of course, and just looking at the table, they obviously trail Hibs and Spartans by just 3 points. So certainly the motivation is there for Andy Kirk and his team, definitely. And of course, we've got the Scottish Cup final this month, the fixture after next. Do you know, it's a real bugbear that Queen of the South have to play us on
How mad
Saturday.
is that though, by the way? That it's a week and a half away, basically.
It's crazy. It doesn't feel right at all, the way.
Nah.
But something that also certainly doesn't feel right or looks right is Celtic's form of late. What is going on there?
It's a bit... I mean, I was about to say it's a bit crazy, but I don't think that encapsulates it enough. Like, 11 games, 2 wins in all competitions, 2 4-1 batterings off a Sparta Prague team that after the first one they said this result won't happen again. Then it literally happened the next available time it could happen. They go 2-0 up in the San Siro and then get battered. They get knocked out of the League Cup by Ross County.
At
home. They rescue a point against St Johnstone at home. They have a £6 million goalkeeper that they replaced Craig Gordon with, which is just one of my biggest what moments, because why would you let Craig Gordon go for free and then spend £6 million on one of the worst goalkeepers I've ever seen in this country? Shane Duffy coming in on a loan for $2 million. And I said this before we probably get into Celtic. I want to know your opinion on this. I said, when you look at the hype brought in, the level he's played at, and most importantly, the potential implications of his failings, is he the worst signing ever in Scottish football?
Shane Duffy?
Yeah.
I
know there's worse players to have played in this league. We've had about 90% of them, right?
I was going to say, we're spoiled for choice, aren't we?
However, we've never had a player come into this league whose sole purpose was to guarantee the 10, and he looks to be one of the major reasons it may not happen.
It reeks of Joey Barton for me. That's the only other major recent signing that I can think of where it just seemed as though it was going to be a total breeze for them coming up here, and they were going to galvanise the team that they're joining, lead them to the title, and it would be happy, you know, the epitome of happiness for that said club. I can't off the top of my head think of a more underwhelming signing, particularly for a club the size of Celtic.
I was about to say, you do need to, because like I said, we've made in the last 18 months worse signings than Shane Duffy. Most clubs have. Most clubs can't spend that money, but that comes into the signing and how it's been so terrible. He's on loan, but it's cost them £2 million.
I mean, that alone is crazy. I was going to ask you, who do you think's our equivalent to Shane Duffy? Because I've got somebody in my head, certainly in the past few seasons.
Glenn Whelan?
Yeah, that's exactly who I've got as well. I think it seems so obvious that they come up here expecting it to be a breeze, and it just doesn't pan out that way.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know.
Can't agree more.
It is mental. Like you know what's coming in the final as well, though, eh? Like this.
This is the thing. This is what we need to talk about and why we've brought this point in, because the buck ends and begins with Neil Lennon, and Hearts fans have been in the weirdest mode of their lives because they almost in recent weeks want Celtic to start winning, because the fear is that we are now, as we sit and record this, we are now 11 days, no, I can't do maths, 13 days away from the final. And our luck would be they get beat this weekend, he gets sacked on Monday, and the new guy, whoever it is, his first game is battering us.
It's crazy. Obviously they've got the game against Lille as well in the Europa League. That's a dead rubber. But I think they'll still field a strong team in order to kind of regain some confidence. Then they've got Kelly at Parkhead on Sunday, and then it's us. Is it crazy to suggest that we could be recording a podcast? Well, put it this way, if we win it, we won't be recording a podcast on Monday because I'll still be absolutely reeking. But is it mental to suggest that we could?
I
don't see why not.
There has never in our lifetimes been a better time to play Celtic.
No, which is the worry. Which is both a brilliant and
it's such a Hearts mentality. It's like
is.
Every other club in the world is looking at Celtic going, oh, I'd love to play them now. Ross County have just packed them at the League Cup. St Johnstone will be gutted they didn't get a win. Whereas Hearts fans are sat going, nah, we're still going to fuck this somehow.
I just think it's a lifetime of heartbreak is the best way I can put it. Like, no matter the dross that Celtic have signed at striker, it seems nigh on inevitable that their first goal will be against us. It seems like our record at Parkhead. We've obviously touched on away days. I think our record at Parkhead must be the worst in the country.
Adam, I've just realised something.
What were you going to say?
This is going to be Lee Griffiths' revenge for 5-1.
Don't. Please don't.
He's going to start because he's been kind of the joker of this. He's been the kind of, I don't want to say whipping boy of this, but a lot of pundits and stuff like that, and Neil Lennon himself have singled out Lee Griffiths. This will be the game. Lennon will put his trust in him, and purely because he'll be like, mind what they did to you 8 years ago. Go and battle them, and he will get beat 1-0. We'll dominate, and he'll get the goal.
I was going to say, I could see a Lee Griffiths winner off the bench. So that would just be.
This is now what's going to happen.
What's your dream scenario? Let's be positive, because
dream scenario is we win 10-0.
But let me rephrase that. A semi-realistic dream scenario, because we've talked about it being a free hit, but now I'm getting to the stage where, given their form of late,
it's getting closer. So it's kind of like,
but it's not even that. I'd almost be disappointed if we didn't win because of how bad they actually are.
I wouldn't go that far because it's still us. It is still us, regardless of how bad they are. It is still us, and fundamentally, we do have to say this: we are currently a championship side. That is a factor. However, you asked me what my potentially achievable dream scenario is. Now, in our lifetimes, we have watched a team that featured, by the 90th minute, Cole Stockton, Connor Randall, Ross Callaghan and Rafa Jelak beat Celtic 4-0.
You're not suggesting a 4-0?
No, but what I'm saying is, if that team can beat them 4-0, this team has a chance.
Oh, of course. I think you need to only look at the media coverage as well in this country, because everybody's harping on about it's a strong Hearts squad, they're a Premiership club, yada yada yada. There's just a part of me that feels as though in a 90-minute game anything can happen. I think, technically speaking, this is obviously the 19-20 final, but I was going to say even the 18-19, when we were on that horrendous run under Levine, And I think most folk had anticipated that we would get battered. We then take the lead through Ryan Edwards, of all people. You know,
not only that, we played them off the park for 70 minutes until Herring went off.
Well, this is what I'm trying to get at. Sometimes you just never know. Like, even 98, when I look at that Rangers team, and if everybody talks about how good Rangers were in the 90s, sometimes there just comes a point where you get that stroke of luck. Every dog has its day. I'm a firm believer in that. And I can't see any reason why this couldn't be our day.
Imagine, right? And by the way, guys, we will say we're going to dedicate another segment next week, obviously, to this, because it will be the preemptive. But we wanted to speak about this now just to kind of discuss Celtic's form this week, because next week it will be more about the game itself, who would pick and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
However, I'll mention this probably next week, but just think, we potentially, come Christmas, even, we'll just use Christmas, we can say that we are the team to stop Celtic's unbeaten run and the quadruple treble.
And potentially lose Neil Lennon his job.
Yeah, but think of that, that we as a fan base can say to Celtic. That's mental. That's legitimately mental.
That is some top trolling right there, to be fair. I'd give anything for us to do them. They're the one club throughout my life that I've just they're just there. Like, they're my most hated because we've never finished above them in my life, ever. We've beaten Hibs in a final. Obviously in your lifetime, obviously I was born the month after, we've beaten Rangers in a final. We've lost to Celtic in a final. They're that annoying bugbear of mine. It would just be nice. Obviously, you've mentioned ending the run, and that was brilliant. One of the best league games, if not the best league game I've ever been at.
Mm-hmm.
But it would just be amazing to do them in a final, and particularly when you look at the rest of the cup. Rangers in the quarter final.
That's what I was just about to say. Would this
Hibs in the
be
semi,
our best
tick.
run ever?
Oh, without a shadow of a doubt. Excluding Airdrie and Falkirk.
Still though, Airdrie famously a team that we're rubbish against.
Yeah. But like I was saying, Rangers in the quarters, Hibs in the semi, Celtic in the final. If you could gain a general consensus of the two, potentially three teams that Hearts would most like to beat en route to winning a major honour, it would be Hibs and Celtic easily, and then Rangers.
See, obviously I have a slightly different perspective. I have Hibs as my most hated, and I hate Celtic and Rangers the same. Like, I just fucking hate them all. But Hibs for me is the team I hate most. But even taking away personal rivalry, that's a club who is arguably the third biggest club in Scotland, beating the other 3 out the 4 biggest clubs.
Wow, Aberdeen not in there for you, no?
Aberdeen could be, yeah, that's what I mean. Aberdeen the one exception.
Yeah.
Aberdeen and Hibs, like, and us. That's the ever long debate. Who's the who are the bigger? What's the order? But you know what I mean. Like, in my head, anyway, to me, the 3 biggest clubs outside ourselves are Hibs, Rangers, and Aberdeen. And to say that you've beaten all 3 of them in a row, it's just unthinkable almost.
No, it is, and it just. Honestly, what I'd give, I don't even care who scores the winner. Just, it would
imagine the
just be unbelievable.
staunchness if Jamie Walker passes to Andy Halliday, who scores the winner.
I was going to say even Stephen Naismith.
Oh yeah, Walker crosses it in, who passes it to Halliday, who lays it on a plate for Naismith.
I was thinking Walker crosses into the box, Naismith, the most blatant dive of all time to win the penalty, and Andy Halliday steps up to avenge his demons, slots it home. There's honestly,
so many. Also, this, because again, we won't really speak about this next week because it's not as important. There's so many interesting statistics of this competition due to COVID. Obviously, it's the longest running Scottish Cup campaign. We could say whoever wins gets to say they won that, but also particularly in our team, there's some very interesting stats. Craig Gordon will most likely get a winner's medal regardless.
Which is mental.
And Andy Halliday will be the first player ever to be knocked out in the quarterfinal and play in the final.
Wow. Jeez, oh.
Because obviously in all other past seasons you would be cup tied.
Yeah. That's bonkers.
Obviously he might not play in the final, but by current selection you imagine he would play in the final.
Yeah, I mean, it just honestly, I feel as though we could spend all day talking about the build up to this final, but
I think that next week it's going to be like Queen of the South a little bit, right? This game.
Queen of the South analysis and then bang on the Celtic preview.
Exactly.
But yeah, so your dream scenario is what? Just a
My
win
dream
at
scenario,
at any cost.
If you said to me after the game, what would you want? And if I could just write it, Genie gives me a wish, it would be that this sounds mental, but that we start getting beat.
We come from behind to do it.
And come from behind 2-1, 90th minute. Like that's the perfect dream. But obviously,
honestly, I'm down with that.
But generally, if we could win like 3, if we could have it done by half time, and the second half is the most boring thing that has ever happened, I'd be dancing around my living room.
No, I'd hate that. I feel as though that 45 minutes would turn into 45 year.
Oh yeah, it definitely would. But I mean, like after it would just be the most worthwhile 45 minutes of your life.
No, that's true. I guess for me, I'm wanting the 2012 semi again. To be honest. That was brilliant. Us take the lead kind of just after half time, be kind of wrongly pulled back for some sort of altercation, like their Hooper goal was offside, and then us get an equally terrible decision going our way and making the most of it for once.
Well, it's John Beaton in charge, so it's very likely to happen.
Well, this is what I was going to ask you as well, because do you not feel as though there's kind of some narrative whereby he would be perceived to be on our side, but would kind of, don't want to say cater to Celtic as such, but he'd be kind of more lenient for any Celtic fouls or whatever, as though he's trying to prove himself to them. Do you see where I'm coming from?
I totally see where you're coming from. I just think all referees in Scotland are too shit to have thoughts like that.
Just
they're too rubbish. They can't think for themselves like that. Yeah, they're just massive bottle merchants, and they'll just, if any rubbish decisions are made, I personally don't buy into that. Oh, it's because it's Celtic or it's because it's Rangers. It's like, no, it's because they're rubbish referees and shouldn't be at this level.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. Although there is a part of me that was kind of hoping for, I don't know, Willie Collum, because he refereed the 4-0, didn't he?
He did.
Willie. What a guy.
He also refereed the semi last month, where he gave 2 of the worst penalty shouts I've ever seen.
and also the 18-19 final as well against them.
I was just about to say where he gave a shocking penalty decision there, I know. So I want him as far away from that game as possible.
Maybe not. But no, definitely next week we can go final heavy if you like.
Definitely.
Of course, the only game that separates Hearts from another Scottish Cup final and potential 9th Scottish Cup victory is the Doonhamers, i.e. Queen of the South at Tynecastle this Saturday afternoon. What's your thoughts regarding that, mate? Because I've got to be honest, if we don't smash them, I will be very disappointed.
They look hopeless, eh?
They really do. Absolutely rotten.
Have they still got Dobby?
They do. I was going to say, I think the only concerns for me are Stephen Dobie and the boy Aidan Fitzpatrick. He's a good wee player. The boy that went to, I think he's on loan from Norwich.
Yes.
And was it Partick Thistle? I think he's still a teenager actually, but he's meant to be the next kind of real deal. I'll be gutted if we don't absolutely do Queen of the South, to be honest. I
will be honest. I'll take like a 2-0. Like I don't really care about that. Yeah, like I don't think we like. I've seen a lot of people already, say this needs to be a statement of intent for the final, it needs to be 7-0, it needs to be 5-0, we need to just completely whitewash them. I don't think it works like that. I think win, lose or draw at the weekend, I don't think that'll affect the cup final. That's its own thing.
That's a separate entity, isn't it?
Exactly. However, for me, this game is, if I look at it objectively, is it as big a game because it's a league game, and we need to be winning every league game, particularly when we're at home.
Well, that was going to be the saving grace for me that I was just about to say. Do you not think that it's kind of... It's wrong to dismiss these matches, but at home I feel as though it's a case of when we're going to score, not if.
I totally agree that really hit home to me when we played Inverness, and even when they pegged one back, I was just sat there going, oh, we're still going to win this.
Yeah.
And if it was away from home, I would never think that.
Yeah. It felt as though we could even have gone on and just kind of sealed the deal late on, didn't it?
Absolutely. And I think that is so simultaneously crucial, and it creates this atmosphere that it is just expected, which I know some people will go, that allows complacency, stuff like that, and I do get that point, but so far it's not, and we should be expected to win every single game at home.
No, of course, and I think the positive we can take from it as well is, obviously, like Robbie's said in recent pressers, sides do nick points off one another in this league, and the Fife derby was obviously proof of that, and us going back to the top should be a morale boost in itself, and it seems as though everything's kind of aligning for us now, which is bizarre, because all we've done is win away from home, and yet the Stars just, do you know what I mean? It seems to all just be coming up together. It's weird,
and I think that plays into why I was very hesitant, and Robbie said himself, and you were as well, I say that as if you weren't, we were both very hesitant to throw the toys out the pram and be like, everything's a nightmare after last week was objectively terrible. That 7-day period was objectively really, really bad. However, exactly 190 minutes of football happened, and we went top of the league by a point. It's not just equal points, and it kind of now just feels like this should be it now. We should just be off to the races.
Yeah. I think because of our criticism of recent performances as well, it seems like we're still picking up points, and we've yet to really hit our stride. Definitely. Which obviously we hope will come at Tiny on Saturday. I mean, Queens should be. I mean, this really. If we thought that Morton was routine, this really should be as well, should it not?
Definitely. I think the main discussion / contentious point will be what team you field, because I know I did just say the final takes care of itself, but not in terms of injuries and fitness. So what do? Do you play full strength, which I do imagine Robbie will do, because there is a week in between, but do you play full strength, get the win, and ensure that those players are in a winning mentality and they're used to it? Or do you go, what if Herring gets a massive injury? What if Walker gets a massive injury? We're going to be screwed and we need them, so you rest them, but then there's a potential chance that they lose that form, like even missing out for a game. What do you think?
Well, it's funny you mentioned obviously Big Pete there. I don't feel as though Robbie will go full strength. I feel as though he might extract one or two key components, the players that we can't really live without. So I could see he's obviously a big fan of Halkett. I wouldn't be against fielding Berra and Popescu on Saturday.
Okay, I will actually say that just before you go on. Fair play to Berra, by the way, in recent weeks. He's come in and looked solid. Yeah,
totally agree. And there was so many of the fan base, myself as well to a little extent, that had written him off. So no, fair play.
I mean, I don't want him on the park at Hampden.
No, but certainly in and amongst the boys.
Yeah.
His experience is invaluable, and the spell at Dundee, I think has set the tone. He's easily capable at championship level. So no, like I say, I wouldn't be against Berra and Popescu starting. The full backs for me, I could see why they'd be given game time. Wouldn't be opposed to an Eddie White starting.
Interesting.
Jury's still out for me on Jamie Brandon, so maybe keep Smith in there. But then Smith's played a lot of football as well, because obviously he's had his Northern Ireland exploits and whatever, so maybe now might be the time. Midfield, I could see a couple changes. Maybe your man Scott McGill, your boy Scott McGill, might get his time to shine.
I genuinely, I hope so. I think this could be a really good game for McGill, because he should be able. I know he's really young and he is quite a wee guy as well, but he should be able to dictate play in that game.
Yeah, I don't see why not. Just try to think.
The big call is, what do you do with Boyce?
Are you asking me as in what would I do, or have you got something
both
in mind?
No, I don't really know. I was going to say both. What do you think Nielsen will do, and what would you do? Because as Nielsen said, the reason he was taken out was an injury. Now yes, a small injury, and Nielsen's been like, yeah, he'll be fine for this weekend. However, there is that feeling that Hearts fans have seen this before, where somebody picks up a wee. I mean, Ginnelly this season, apparently it was just a wee thing and he'll be back next week. And what is that? Like a month and a half now we've not seen him. So
since Arbroath, yeah.
Yeah. So what happens if you play Boyce and then his hamstring gets a wee bit tighter, and then he can't play at the weekend? But then what if you don't play Boyce? He's not got that game time, and then he starts against Celtic and pulls up 15 minutes in.
This is why we're not paid, obviously, the money to make these decisions. No, it's. Do you know, there's a part of me that feels as though he'll give Boyce a half or so in this game.
There's also the argument that Boyce should be. I mean, we've said this about every team in this league, but Boyce should be scoring against Queen of the South. So do you want to get him into that form going in? But he wasn't really in that form against Hibs and did it. So it's so many different options.
I would love to see Liam Boyce start, score, and be hauled off at half time, if you're asking me.
That's fair.
Just because of, like you say, his need for a goal, and equally the same kind of injury doubts.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it's interesting. What would you do?
I really don't know. I've been thinking about it kind of throughout today at work and stuff like that, because it's one of those things. There is a week. It's not like we're playing on the. It's not like we're playing on Wednesday and then we have the semi-final 3 days later. The final 3 days later. Like, even if Boyce maybe does pull up a wee bit or just feels a bit tight so as to come off, he's then got a week's worth of rehab. But I really like that suggestion for you. Start him up front, first half, hopefully get a goal, and then take him off second, put Whiten on up front.
Who knew I could be so insightful?
I know, what's happened?
What about midfield? We sort of skimmed over midfield. What's your thoughts there?
All I'm thinking about is Andy Irvine, because now listen, I know I've spoken about it too much, but in my FM series, Herring and Irving were my midfield for 16 games, and then 3 days before the Aberdeen semi-final they both got hurt and missed it. And all that's happening in my head is the fear that we play Herring and Irvine, they both get hurt and miss the final.
Could this be a Halliday, Lee, McGill trio for you?
I would have said no before Saturday, because as I've said twice now, I never want to see Lee and Halliday again. But clearly I'm going to see Lee and Halliday again, and they actually did alright at the weekend. So maybe, have that experience in behind youth.
Do you know, this entire conversation just brings a ton of dilemmas. If you picked an 11 to play Queen of the South, what would you go? Right here, right now.
Right, Gordon in goals, obviously. Aidy White, Michael Smith, Berra Popescu,
Interesting.
Halliday McGill, Walker, Naismith, Lee Boyce in a 4-3-3.
Interesting.
What would you go with? This is purely just to minimise injury to the players I find most important, which are Irving, Halke and Herring, and also to hopefully get Boyce in goal scoring form. But then there's Walker, who's just turned alive this weekend as well.
Well, I'm already thinking of the debate that I'm having on the left.
I just never want to see Jordan Roberts or Elliot Free play again, though. Lewis Moore, chuck him back in.
That's not a bad shout either.
Where is he?
God knows. Gordon in goal. I just am going to have to give Stephen Kingsley a rest. So I'll go,
that was my logic as well.
I'll go White, Berra, Popescu. I would be inclined to play Jamie Brandon. I know that back four screams just the fear.
But it's Queen of the South, you're right.
Exactly.
You should be able to get through that.
Like all I've said, stop Aidan Fitzpatrick and Stephen Dobie and we'll win the game. Midfield, I like that trio of Halliday, Lee and McGill. I like the thought of that.
Thank you.
The flanks again though, Jesus.
Are you playing a 4-3-3 or a 4-1-2? Oh, a 4-2-3-1.
I'd go Roberts and Freer either side. I know that's terrible. And Boyce to start, to be then hauled off.
Who in the 10? Oh, McGill, sorry.
Yeah. No, I'd probably go Lee.
Oh, Lee, sorry, of course. Surely, I mean, I know we're both kind of going about Roberts and Freer, but surely they should be able to do well against Queen of the South.
This is it. I mean, it's funny. We've talked about kind of us chucking the toys at the pram, and yet we're seemingly writing off Jordan Roberts and Elliot Freer after a handful of league games.
With Jordan Roberts apparently nursing a niggle.
Oh, brilliant. So, do you know what? If they want to stay here, it's time to get the finger out. So, yeah. This is as good a chance as ever. Queens are probably going to be, I'd say, 8th downwards. So, yeah. They're probably the worst full-time team in the country. So this is a chance to lay down a marker.
You're basically playing the reserves, apart from Gordon and Boyce.
And even then, I'm going to haul Boyce off.
Yeah, exactly. It's going to be Gordon and a bunch of 12-year-olds by the 90th minute.
Do you know what? We've talked about Moore and Henderson. I wouldn't be opposed to seeing them come in.
Yeah, see? I put them left and right mid.
Why not? Now's the time. The kids are alright. There we go.
And then what's actually going to happen is it's going to be complete full strength on Saturday.
And our 3 substitutions will be used for injured players.
Yeah, is that Herring, Irving and Boyce?
Oh my god. See when that happens and somebody finds this, they're going to be so angry.
Oh, I know. What's your score prediction though?
I spoke with Cammy Anderson to obviously kind of get the lowdown on Queens, given he's done the Pure Championship podcast, and I said to him, I'll be disappointed if we don't hit 3 or 4, because obviously we talked about how rank they are, and simultaneously I've just come on and said that I'd probably play the kids and some reserves. I'll just go 2-0 Hearts. Bog standard, comfy. Yeah, the backup brigade will have enough. What about you?
4-0. Battering.
Wow. But then you've got a stronger 11 than me, I suppose. You've got a stronger 11, so I could see that.
True.
And Robbie must be...
We're going to get beat 1-0.
A Stephen Dobie winner from an Aidan Fitzpatrick cross.
Exactly. Well, what a way to end. With, even in the most positive one we've had, still that wee bit of negativity. But massive thank you to everyone who's listened. absolutely huge week next week. We'll be covering the Queen of the South game. A hidden feature that we haven't spoken about yet, but tune in next week to hear about that. And then the rest of the podcast, it'll probably be a longer one, will be about the upcoming Scottish Cup final against Celtic Football Club, who will hopefully still have Neil Lennon in charge of their team. However, thank you for listening again. We are at Perth to Paisley on literally every social platform and also every podcast platform, as I found out, thinking that we weren't, but we're actually on Google Podcasts and have been for months. So that's great. If you like us on Google Podcasts, listen to us there. As I say, we're on the socials at Perth to Paisley. Email us perthtopaisley@gmail.com if you have a question or a comment. Tweet us, leave us a Facebook comment. We're on YouTube as well. We're everywhere. Adam, where are you on social media?
I'm at Adam T. Kendo on all the socials. Yourself?
I am at McIver the Mark. Follow us there, and we'll just have a lovely time, a routine win against Queen of the South, and then the terrifying prospect of a potential 4th Scottish Cup in my lifetime and 3rd in Adam's lifetime. But thank you very much for listening. Yeah, exactly. Just remember that. I will always see one more Scottish Cup than you, regardless of what happens.
Thanks very much, mate.
It's alright. So thank you very much for listening.